Now, while you were there, did it really make you take a look at yourself a little bit, having been in South Africa and seeing how they live and the things that they're going through? Did you have a different perspective on things after you were there?
Well, I think there's one thing in particular that I had a very different perspective on. And I think the students, I don't know if you'll remember this, but you may remember this from some documentaries. On day one, we saw Woolworths. And we were like, Woolworths? Didn't they shut down after all those sit-ins? And Dr. Jackson informed us that no, they just packed up, left the South, and went straight to Cape Town. And so when people make those connections and those comparisons between Jim Crow South and the apartheid era, right? Those are some real connections. And that Woolworths would say, Cape Town is the place where we can go and thrive. And I was amazed because the Woolworths, it almost looked like the motif was black and white, but it almost looked like Target, like an upscale Woolworths, not like the 5 and dime Woolworths that it used to be. So they actually came up in the world when they took themselves to a place where they felt like the segregation would not be challenged in the same way, right? So that, in those moments, sometimes we think is, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But it allowed for some perspective, right, around the power of boycotts, the power of sit-ins, the power of young people saying we want to be treated with dignity and in our full humanity, right? And so we have these Claflin alums that made those statements right here in Orangeburg at some of those counters, and so we carry that legacy with us. And I thought about that when we saw the Woolworths, and I also thought about the way in which when you're traveling, you really have to take care of what you can take care of. Mm-hmm. You have to be mindful of the things that you can control. So there are some things that, like there are some comforts from home, you're not at home. So what are the things that you can take with you? And for young people, sometimes it may be your earbuds. Like, okay, once I got my music, I know I'm good. Or if there's a particular kind of pillow or something that feels like home, it's good to travel with that thing. Because when you get to a place where you're like, oh, okay, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing this, or everybody's going and I think I want to do something different, then just to have something that centers you, right, I think is a good thing to have when you're traveling, because you just don't even know what you're not in control of, right? Mm-hmm. And I think also around diet, sometimes it's good to look up what the food is where you're going. Cape Town is like the United States. I mean, like Cape Town proper. So we didn't have to make any adjustments in that regard. But it is really thinking about what are the things that I know that I like, and can I come back to those things if we go somewhere and maybe the food, I'm not ready to rock with it. Like if there's something else I can eat, because you still have to have nourishment when you travel. You can't just say, well, I just won't eat. And then, like 24 hours has passed and you haven't had proper nourishment, you haven't been hydrated, and then you're on your tour sick, and then people have to care for you, right? So some of it is knowing about yourself and knowing, oh, that's our pot. That food was very good out of the pot. Very good. And just kind of knowing what are the things that you can do to make you a good traveler in the group.
Ms. Cohen, you want to comment on some of that? Because you were there, so.
I was there, but no, that's why I hang out with intelligent people like Dr. Adams. I mean, just listen to her explaining the background and the history is absolutely amazing. And what she said about the kind of folks that we met and the history is it was an awesome trip. We learned a lot. We saw a lot of beautiful, beautiful things. But the most important thing, well, that's the winery. But the most important thing for me on the trip was the people that I was with. I didn't know any of them. The faculty members that I met, they will be my colleagues and my friends forever because they encouraged, they gave me knowledge about what they did with their students. And all that information is so important to me of when I am meeting with a donor or a prospect and I'm asking for funds for student scholarship. So what is the best way to do that is talk about our students and how they engage with our faculty member in the kind of things that they do. So I feel so honored to have been with that group for the things that I have learned from them to help build a case on how we continue not only to raise funds for students in scholarship, but for our faculty and globalization. And how do we integrate all of that together to raise the funds that's needed for us to be successful in this area? So that was the best partnership. Now, Mickey, you know, in fundraising. So by the end of the trip, I had convinced all of them to pay some money to donate to the school. And I believe they did that, which was really good to find out where their heart was when they became a donor of Claflin University. So it's just the people that were there. And Dr. Jackson is just awesome. I knew her before we went on the trip, actually. And the way that she put together the events and the programs, it was phenomenal of how she did that and the kind of social impact that it had, I believe, on all of us. And this church right here, Archbishop Tutu, Desmond Tutu, was the art the archbishop of this particular Catholic church. And at this church, they have his ashes in the floor, and they have like a headstone on it that actually says what it is. They welcomed us. They were really, really gracious that we came to visit with them on that Sunday. So and those two are in the middle right there. Those were friends that we met. We met
Yes.
people. We're very happy-go-lucky, so they got attached to us, right, Dr. Adams?
They sure did. They were like, we are having such a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that we were touring together, but we didn't know each other. But by the end, people were like exchanging numbers. There are a couple in Canada, and so I think some folks were like, oh, if you'd like to do some presentations for my class. That guy that was there from Canada, he could actually explain about the supply chain. When you go somewhere and somebody's like, "Oh, we're having a supply chain problem," you're like, "Well, what does that really mean?" Like he could explain that. He has lived in so many different parts of the world, and just the exchange of information. I think that I learned so much just traveling with Miss Cohen. Like everybody's expertise, kind of came through in a way that I now feel like, okay, well, if I'm looking for this, that I don't have to kind of figure things out on my own.
Now,
Um,
let me tell you about Dr. Adams. If she means that, she's been to my office. Ms. Cohen, do you have this for my students? And guess what? Yes, we do. Now, before that, we would have never connected like that, and she wouldn't have known. But anything that she needs for her students or whatever it is, we have it, it's hers. So yeah, that kind of connection, integration, that was very, very important, I believe, to all of us. That
And
we gained
if
that.
there is anybody that likes to do some book shopping, Miss Corn will go with you. She treks through the city while I was trying to get to a bookstore. I got a book on Steve Biko in South Africa. I got a book on African fractals. And when we were on Robben Island, I got this comic book on Nelson Mandela. And probably about 15 other books that are in my office, but this is kind of representative of some of the things that I brought back. But just to walk the city,
Yes.
to go into the shops, and again to know, like, I'm a person where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna find this bookstore, and they're like, you're not gonna buy yourself. Somebody's gonna go with you. Somebody's going to, and and I'm like, not like in a like it's super dangerous way, but it's like that enhances the trip. I'm just so thankful that you walked that walk with me, because it just gave us time to just talk and bond.
Yes,
And
because listen, Dr. Mickey. So so we're walking downtown, walking, just seeing people, absolutely amazing. So the marketplace, and Dr. Adams, she's this book lover. I mean, book lover. So we went to a bookstore. I found a chair and I sat down while she shopped. But guess what? On the way back, I bet, you know how we would buy like a scarf and this and pack it. I bet she had a whole suitcase full of books. But she thought about her class and what they were doing and the things that, that will enhance them and impact her students on the books that she bought.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Did any students make the trip with you?
No, not this time. There is a trip that's going to Greece in about 2 months. And 10
and
students, I think 10 students will be on that trip.
and there is a trip to Panama, and they have incentivized that trip also for students. But they need to know by the 14th, that's Friday, if you are interested in going. So I'll be mindful. I just saw the flyer for that, but I will send that around. And what I would just say is, apply for as much as you can. Don't be so selective that you end up selecting yourself out of opportunities, because in any situation, there was part of me that was like, I thought I was going to be in Brazil for the spring break. So Cape Town, it was kind of like, okay, this is a departure. This is not my first choice. This is not what I thought I was going to do. But when I got to some of those bookstores, I was like, oh my goodness, here's a whole book on the Khoisan people, right? I'm like seeing these things that are coming up in our class, and so between the people, just really kind of stretching yourself, that happens quite naturally when you are out of familiar surroundings, and then taking pictures and looking at some of those pictures. I'm still thinking about some of this in different ways, and just the exposure, and so I think that for me it's the reminder that when I'm traveling, sometimes there's a lot of stress in travel when you are going through the airport and you're trying to get from point A to point B, but then when you get there and you relax, I would just say to really take in the experience and try to experience people, right? Try to work on building relationships. And sometimes those relationships could be very, very brief in a moment. A young man stopped me when we were making a reservation for brunch, and he says, "Oh, I know a little bit about the United States." And he was like, "Do you know Umar Johnson?" And I'm like, okay, let me give you some other references around Africana studies so you can broaden this knowledge that you're getting. And I was like, oh, you do YouTube, right? So I kind of put him in class with Carr. I'm like, expand what you are listening to. Don't stop there. Don't stop with Umar Johnson. Keep going, keep going. But just to be able to have that conversation with somebody that, it's just a brief moment, but there may be a time where somebody will say, I remember when you came to Cape Town. I was going live on some social media sites, platforms, and I was telling people like, oh yeah, I'm here in Cape Town. So somebody actually gave me the name of a bookstore. I had gone to a bookstore and they're like, oh yeah, and Clark's. Oh, okay, I'll be there too. So these are things that you all use effortlessly. And then you're able to maintain or connect to people in very different ways, and practice building relationships, because you can look at pictures of Africa, you can listen to somebody else tell you about Africa, but it's nothing like you experiencing African people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you encapsulated the trip and have everybody wishing they could go to Africa.
Yes, let's all go as many times as we can.
I would agree. I would agree. I'm really happy that you were all able to go and experience that, and that Claflin University was able to leave its imprint and trademark there. They are very warming people, very caring. They kind of look up to you coming from America, and it's really funny that they kind of feel like, oh, they didn't know that blacks in America came from Africa. They, in our visit there, they were like stunned. Oh, you from Africa? Yes, but they hadn't been educated to be able to know, and so it really makes you look at things a little bit different, and makes you a lot more appreciative of the things that we have over here, and makes you a lot more giving to try to help those brothers and sisters back in Africa.
Yeah.
Dr. Adams, we appreciate you being with us and being able to get you on. I know that Ms. Corn was kind of panicking. She wanted to make sure you were able to come in and tell your story, and now I see why.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This has been an honor to be with both of you. Mr. Clayton, thank you for giving us an opportunity to be on your show. And it's been an honor, and we should talk some more.
We definitely should. And I appreciate you being on and as the kids like to say, spitting wisdom. That you told us a lot and gave us a lot that we need to marinate on. Thank you, Dr. Adams.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Adams.
Thank you.
Bye. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And just imagine that was just one of the faculty. But Dr. Adams have such a history and knowledge because that's her background. That's what she teaches to her students. African studies. What is it? Because if I didn't know where one country was or didn't think it was a country, and I would say it to her, and she does it in such a loving way. Veronica, no, that's such and such and such. And I have learned so much from her just by having conversations about being in Africa now. And this is my third time in Africa. The first time I went, when I came back, it was like there was a beam on me. I went to Namibia. And before I went, everyone in America says, well, Africans don't like Americans and da-da-da-da-da, be careful. But that was so not true.
Exactly.
I fell in love with Africa over there. I didn't want to leave. And I didn't want that shine to dissipate. And it stayed for a while, and I felt it. It was just being downtown with like a city in America, but everybody's Black.
Mm-hmm.
but not in Cape Town, but
Right.
in other parts, business people, just owning stuff. And I went to a hut where I met this young couple that lived in a hut. It was just overwhelming to me, and it was an experience that I would never forget. But the globalization with Dr. Jackson, they are going as well as to India and Dubai
Mm. Okay.
and Greece. So yes, it was a fantastic trip, and I think eventually um, we can maybe have. I know it would be great to have Dr. Jackson on here.
Mm.
She just couldn't come today because she was teaching a class that she could not just not go to the class. But we need to have her here and maybe some of the other faculty members because I think it's very important
Mhm.
that the athletic show showcase all of the diversity that there is at Claflin University.
Well, we completely concur, and that's why we're really interested in being able to show all the educational components of the university.
Mhm.
Because you'll have, as we have on our program, we're emphasizing for the next few weeks that you have a lot of student athletes that'll go pro in something other than sports. So
Yes, yes, yes. So how about that? Woo-hoo.
that's our theme and where we're headed. And we cannot emphasize the education. We can't emphasize the educational component enough. And we need for our student athletes to be aware that the first word in there is student. And all of these educational components that are in place at our HBCUs are there.
Mhm,
So you need to be able to take advantage of them
mhm.
and see that awakening because, the way it's going now, it's working real hard for you not to be educated about your own people.
They
So,
are. I mean, look at what Florida is doing.
yes.
You can't even teach it in schools. And I don't think we even realize what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of ignore it,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to wake up
Mm-hmm.
and get a better understanding of the kind of things as we come together as a group, which sometimes we don't. It's kind of difficult for us. But just imagine if we came together like that as in one understanding and work together. Imagine the beautiful things that will happen to us as a group. But we just can't get there. I don't know what that is. So
Well, if we continue to work at it, understanding what our own personal mission is to be able to educate those coming behind us, I think that's part of the journey. And that's
yes,
exactly what you're doing at Claflin and with Claflin University. And a lot of our HBCUs are fighting to be able to maintain that autonomy
mhm,
to be able to do that.
yes.
Ms. Cohen, we appreciate you being back and being able to reach out and touch some people that will help enlighten everybody to what that experience was like. Um, I haven't been to Africa 3 times, been once. We were there 10 days and it was came back and boxed up everything to send back to South Africa till we found out how much it cost to send it back. I said, man, it's cheaper for me to fly back over there than to try and see it. But it does something to you. It
It
pulls you to
does.
the heart. It does something to you. You
Yes,
know,
it does, Mickey. It does. And we took clothes, toiletries to the homeless shelter to be distributed to the masses of folks that came. And that was heartwarming that we were able to do that.
it really
Yes.
makes you feel good to be able to reach back and behind the best comedians, there's always some truth in their jokes. And they talk about going back to Africa and how you see people that remind you of somebody over here, you know,
Oh,
because
yes. Yes.
yeah, and the person you see that reminds you of somebody could be reminding you of your grandfather. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
Look, I was in Lesotho. It's a country there. It's very small. And I was at the border and I was trying to get to another country. So they told me that, okay, ma'am, we can't let you leave. I'm like, what? And they said, you look, and I look just like them. They could have been my sister, high cheekbone, complexion. I mean, like my cousin, my family, just resembles all over. It was beautiful. Yeah.
It's always beautiful when you go back home.
It is. Yes.
Well, Ms. Cohen, again, I appreciate you taking the time to educate us and share your experiences from institutional advancement. I know it's so many things that you have on your agenda coming up. Hopefully we can get together soon and do another segment.
I hope so. Let me know, because I have a whole list of stuff for you.
Yeah, so you say. So you say. So you say. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could applaud, it would be a standing ovation, and you could drop the mic. That was the performance that we had today that was so educational for you. Entertaining, enriching, and educational.
Yeah.
3 E's, all here on the Claflin Athletic Show with the Institutional Advancement Department on the trip to South Africa.
Yes.
Thank you all. We will see you next week.
Claflin University has been the choice of thousands of students to help them prepare for a life of success and to realize their dreams.
Claflin has an amazing reputation of preparing the workforce here in the South Carolina region and globally. We know that your experience here at Claflin will be transformational.
The university has many articulation agreements with international institutions of higher education. Consider Claflin University as your choice because the world needs visionaries.
I liked it on Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter. INSiiGHTS.
Yeah.
2 I's in the middle. INSiiGHTS.
All right, y'all.